People make culture, and the people here are pretty special.
Welcome to Island Influencers, where we share stories of successful business owners, experienced professionals, entrepreneurs and community leaders based or with influence in the Isle of Man. This podcast is brought to you by Thornton Chartered Financial Planners, because great financial planning has the power to change your life. Now here's your host, Chartered Financial Planner Sharon Sutton.
Welcome to this week's episode of Island Influencers, and my guest this week is Dr Breesha Maddrell. Breesha is the Director of Culture Vannin, the Manx Heritage Foundation, and it's a role she's held since 2014. Breesha's also an active musician, singer and composer, and her story is one of swimming against the current, and I hope you enjoy listening to it. Welcome, Breesha Maddrell, to Island Influencers, and thanks so much for agreeing to be my guest this week. Well, let's start, shall we, by hearing all about your story and, going back in time and...
See if I can remember that far back.
Yeah, if you ask me, they say, it's back as far as I can remember. With John Kineen, he used to say, it's about 3 weeks now.
Well, I was born in the south of the island. My family are from Port St Mary, and that's... really the place where I've stayed and where I've grown up, even though I've travelled to other places since then. And I was one of those people who had to go to Russian infant school in those days, and then Russian junior. They were separate schools. They weren't just one school. Yeah. And then to Castle Russian after that. And, had a really, really lovely childhood. I was reflecting on it as I was driving here. I was thinking, actually... we had a really good extended family around us, and that was a real strong sense that we were all part of something bigger there. Gosh. And that was a really nice, I think, way to grow up. Yeah, and who was in your extended family? Was it grandparents? Grandparents, yeah. Really, yeah. Oh, lovely. So, it was good. So for the benefit of listeners who don't know about the Isle of Man, the fact that you went to Russian infants and Russian primary school isn't the fact that it's Russian spelt with a W or R-U-S-S-I-A-N. No, it's Russian parish, S-H-E-N. Yeah, great. So what aspects of growing up did you take to further afield when you went? I mean, so you went to Russian and then you went to Castle Russian. Yeah. I think... Then what? What happened then? Well, then I went to university, and then I decided to stay at universities for quite a while, which was an interesting decision, I think. I think during my childhood I'd been introduced to music quite early on because my mum had a piano that I think had belonged to her family. Mm-hmm. And in my dad's family, actually, his grandfather or his father used to play by ear, and his uncle used to play the piano by ear. So there's musicality on both sides of the family. Right. So I wanted to learn the piano when I was younger, and then played recorder at school, then I played the flute. Okay. And did all of that. So you progressed from piano to recorder to flute. I probably did a bit of recorder at school first. Yeah. Then probably top infants, went for my first piano lessons. A really lovely old lady up the How called Miss Slingsby. Yeah, and learnt with her, and she was somebody who didn't push you through the grades. She just said, play for pleasure and play because you enjoy it, and I think that was important. And I've had music in my life, and I did a lot of sport at school. You wouldn't know it to look at me now, but I did a lot of sport at school as well. Yeah, what's all? I played in all the school teams for everything, so hockey and basketball and netball and rounders and everything. And then I developed various back issues, which meant I couldn't carry on in the same level. Gosh, sorry about that. Yeah. Yes. So Manx music, though, it's different. You don't find that in normal grades of music examination, of course. So how did you manage to get into that? What side of the family did that come from? Well, it didn't really come from anybody other than, in a weird way, books that were lying around, because the Manx National Songbook was there. I had to go and play something at church, and I'm thinking, what am I going to play? And I reverse engineered the Manx National Songbook, which, if you don't know about it, is taking traditional tunes and then working them up for sort of a polite parlour with people playing piano and singing. So I just reverse engineered it and just played the melodies. So I was actually playing the traditional tunes without really knowing what was going on. Gosh. And then when I got to Castle Rushen, we had Paul Dunderdale as one of our music teachers, and he's interested in lots of different sorts of music, including traditional music, and he encouraged us to form a folk group and busily fed us lots of material that we all rejected, and he was delighted we rejected it. And then we discovered the Red and Yellow Book and we started playing. And we did that throughout secondary school and played in the Port Erin hotels to earn some extra money on their Manx nights. And played in sessions at the Albert in Port St Mary, which were going on in those days.
Still go on to this day, do they not?
Yeah.
Gosh, that's it's a non sort of traditional way into it really. So you would have already been a pretty good classical musician by the time you got to that stage, I suppose. Yeah,
and that's the strange thing, I think, that classical music, I learnt really, really quickly to sight read very well, to interpret things, to play things within certain rules. And traditional music is all about listening and making it your own and putting your own variation in. So I think having learnt both styles is very good for you.
Yeah, totally. So when you decided to go off and do your university degree, how did it culminate in your journey? How did you get from there to where you are now? What happened then?
Well, I was always interested in music and languages at school, and it just happened to be that my favourite French teacher left, so I did German A-level instead of French, and I did music as well. And I wanted to do just music, first of all, at uni. And you have to do an extra subject in your first year. So I did German. I liked that so much I turned it into a dual honours degree, which meant I got a year in Germany as well. What was
that like?
It was interesting because I was a language assistant in a comprehensive school in a place called Hessen near Frankfurt. And they seemed to be having a war in the school between the head teacher and the staff. So it was a bit of an interesting year, but it wasn't without its good points. And I had lots of good friends nearby in Bavaria that I would go and visit. So
yeah, sure.
But it's a good experience, I think. Learning another language, I think, is good because it opens up your mind to the way different people think and to a whole lot of literature and culture that you wouldn't be able to access in the same way.
Oh, sure. And you've mentioned more than once now an influence of a teacher on your decisions and where it's made you go. Did that in any way influence how you wanted to go forward yourself? Did you ever want to be a teacher, for example?
Well, both my parents are teachers, so I was determined not to become a teacher. So I felt if I went to Germany and didn't go, you had the choice to go to a university or to be a language assistant in a school. I thought if I get it out of my system and do it then I can avoid becoming a teacher, because I really think it's something you do if it's your vocation. I think my parents showed me that very strongly, and it's not something that you do as a 9 till 3:30 job. It isn't that. It's something that takes so much more time and dedication. And so I didn't really think that was for me. So I did my undergraduate degree, did quite well, and then went off to do a master's at St Andrews, which was a whole different experience after being in a really busy city like Sheffield. Going up to somewhere really small was a bit strange, but did lots of music, so that wasn't so bad, even though I was doing a German master's. And then eventually there was a project set up on the island by the University of Liverpool, the Centre for Manx Studies, looking at the way people speak English in the island. So I thought, well, I could go off and do a PhD in migrant literature, all about German stuff, or I could come home and do that. And at that time, I think my grandparents were quite elderly, and that was another motivation, I think, to come back.
Sure, okay.
And I came back and did a really interesting project and got really deep into what happens with language and identity, really.
And was that what you were able to base your PhD on in the end? Okay.
Yeah.
So did the work of others before you, did that have some input and direct influence
Definitely.
on what sort of research did you have to base on? What was the...
Well, a lot of my work was looking at somebody who people will know because she wrote Manx fairy tales, Sophia Morrison, and she didn't really write Manx fairy tales. She put them together from different people, different informants that she was talking to. She also put a really fascinating book together called A Vocabulary of the Anglo-Manx Dialect. And it's got all the words like skeet and coosh and hamna bravig and things like like that in it that are really specific to the Isle of Man. And I wanted to really unpick how they'd put that book together. So that's really, most of my PhD was taken up doing that, looking at a lot of her personal letters. She was the first secretary, or one of the first secretaries in the Manx Language Society in Cooidjagh. So I got to read lots of fascinating letters. We were working in a team. We were recording interviews with people as well. So we were going out and doing that in the community. So there's a good archive that's in the museum now.
Yeah, and it's people, a lot of people that have passed away since? Or
yes, some of them will have,
Yeah, gosh.
So it was that importance of collecting what's happening now, but also finding out what they've been doing in the past. And
And I noted from your bio that you also did quite a bit of work on Mona Douglas.
That's right. I mean, Sophia Morrison and Mona Douglas and Josephine Kermode, who's the poet named Cooidjagh, they really formed a friendship, even though they were different ages.
Yeah.
And I think it was quite natural to think, right, well, Sophia Morrison did this, and there's 8 boxes and so much of her papers in the museum. Let's see what Mona Douglas did, and there's many more boxes. And it's a fascinating story. And actually, one of my undergraduate dissertations was about Mona Douglas and about how she had shaped the tradition in the Isle of Man, music-wise.
Yeah, she wasn't going to take no for an answer, was she?
No, I only ever met her once. You'll have met her many more times.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I had the privilege of meeting Mona a few times. She was
a force to be reckoned with.
A life force of her own. She really was.
Yeah.
We were at the concert the other night, and the current Manx bard is Annie Cooidjagh, and she described in one of her poems this woman that would drive cheekily as though speed limits were in her front, but also invisible. And I have memories of her driving a Mini, and it was like Spot the Driver. Her arms. You couldn't see her. You just see a pair of hands on a steering wheel. Quite. I think it's been caricatured in several.
Those are all the stories, and people used to say she abandoned rather than parked her car. But I think she was doing everything with such force or with such enthusiasm that nothing was going to get in her way. And what I learnt from those women working for the culture is that they were working at a time when there was a lot of opposition to what they were doing. And Mona Douglas in particular, had to face a lot of prejudices and lots of people.
Not least because she was a woman.
Trying to shut her down.
Yes.
And because of her friendships with people like the Baron.
Yeah.
Because people felt, why is he involved? Because he's not Manx and things like that. So there's lots of strange things going on at the time. And I think that determination, it's made our lives so much easier with what we're doing to promote Manx culture now. And I think, you always have to look at who's gone before you to see who's made it easier. And
left it in a better place.
Yes,
a better starting place of when they began. It's a good thought. Do you see any of those two, Mona and Sophia particularly, do you see them as being sort of the Isle of Man's own answer to J.K. Rowling from the sort of stories they put together?
Well, in a weird way, Mona probably missed that, although she was a very talented poet and she was published at a really young age, and Annie has written her master's dissertation about that. But Sophia Morrison's Manx Fairy Tales, that was at a time when fairy lore was incredibly popular, and she was contributing to international works about the fairies, about the little people. So that was very important, and they're still popular now, and they've been rewritten and reworked. So it's something that I think is important. They're stories that give you a sense of place, they give you a sense of your culture. There's elements of the language in there. There are little songs and rhymes, so it holds quite a lot of the culture sort of and carries it through, which is nice.
That's great. It gives somebody like me, without a great deal of knowledge about it, much more provenance of that from that story. That's good. I might go and look her up. What decisions have seen you get to your current role? How did you end up there?
I don't know. It's one of those things.
Is it worth looking at how Culture Vannin has grown up? Because that used to be the Manx Heritage Foundation.
It still is. That's our charity name, right? And we're just trading as Culture Vannin.
Right. Okay. It's a better name.
Yes, it is. I think it's important to look at why the Manx Heritage Foundation was formed, and that was Sheila Tarr, who you would know as
Yes,
well.
I did, yeah.
Presented a petition and said that there should be an organisation. There was already the Arts Council, there was already the Manx Museum and National Trust. There should be an organisation that looks after elements of Manx culture or cultural heritage, as she would have described it. And she had a brilliant vision, and it's a pity it didn't happen then, for a big centre where people could come and they could have a youth hostel, and you could have a concert venue, rehearsal rooms, and you could have places for craft workshops and for everything. And so it would have been a huge vision if she'd have been able to get the money together at that time. But the Manx Heritage Foundation was formed quite small in the beginning. Charles Gard was involved for decades, and it's such wonderful work.
Yeah.
Publishing books about Manx history, Manx culture.
Early videos.
Yeah, early videos, pioneering that, really.
He did. Yeah, Isle
And
of Man from the Air. That was
amazing
amazing stuff.
Incredibly popular.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And some of his videos that are on YouTube now have reached over 1 million views. So,
Gosh, really?
You know, they're of interest worldwide. There's one of the bank vaults, the secret bank vault in Castletown. That's suddenly
I haven't
gone
seen that.
crazy. You
But
need to look that one up.
Yeah, I do. You'll have to send me a link. We'll put it in the show notes.
Indeed.
Oh, gosh.
So, yeah, the organisation also gives out grants, it publishes, and it made a decision, I don't know how many years ago, probably about 20 years ago, feels like now, to, I wasn't involved, to spend more time and energy and resources on development work. So they had a development officer for Manx language, and then came along development officers for Manx music and dance.
Yeah.
And then we have somebody for online and educational resources, because online presence is the way to get a lot of people, especially if you're a small organisation. You've got limited funds. Being online, being on Facebook.
No, indeed. And that was all taken. That was when was that set up?
Well, we rebranded as Culture Vannin in 2014 when it was Island of Culture. We thought it was a good year to do it, and the board had decided as well, because that they really needed to create an identity that was looking forward, because we're not looking to the past. We take threads from the past, but we're looking at what people are doing now and what they want to do in the future. So we want to have innovation at the heart of Manx culture. So we really like it if one of the young musicians knows all the old tunes that have been recorded and then does something completely different with it. If you think of bands like MLitt and Vooar, they sort of take the music into a completely different sphere.
Oh, yeah, they're completely amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what culture should be. It should be expressed in lots of different ways, so there'll be people who want to play the tunes as the tunes are, and then people who want to really mix them with other influences in their life. And you need both. And that creates a tension, I think, that keeps the culture healthy and keeps it moving forward.
No. Oh, brilliant. So your role is to enable that, but also to, I suppose, collaborate with lots of the other organisations so that nobody has a kind of silo mentality, I suppose.
I think that's been key to how we've worked, is we feel that we should work with other people, we should work cooperatively, and that you achieve a lot more by doing that. And that's sort of one of the things that I found has been really, really rewarding. It shouldn't be a competition between organisations. You all do certain things really well. So find out what you do really well and what they do really well, and then work together to create something even bigger than you could have done on your own.
So can you give me any examples?
Well, we've worked with lots of organisations, but most recently we've worked with Isle of Man Arts Council on lots of projects. And we've developed the National Development Strategy for Culture and the Arts. And as part of that, we've had different projects, including we've just got a graduate intern at the moment. We've got plans for a biosphere-inspired shelter at Caarjyn. The Arts Council are leading some other public art projects that are about to start, again, inspired by biosphere. And so you can work together, and rather than thinking, well, Biosphere are getting on with their thing, Arts Council are getting on with their thing, we'll get on with ours. It's how shall we work together? Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's such a rich and diverse cultural place we have, isn't it? It would seem a shame to.
And people are so creative here.
Yeah,
you know, just in their ordinary lives as an incidental thing, they're painting or they're drawing or they're in a dance group or they're playing music or they're doing other things. So
yeah. A mecca of arts and culture. Isn't the right way to describe it? I don't know.
I don't know. It's nice. The Isle of Man has always been a crossroads. The Isle of Man has been a meeting place, so people have always come here from other places. And I think that's what also makes it interesting, but it's what happens when it's here that makes it Manx or makes it belong to the island.
Yeah, sure. And I guess we've got lots of new influences these days too.
Yeah.
I suppose Dave McLean putting on his Our Island, Our World Festival last year. That was incredible.
And he did a wonderful project, a Bulgarian Manx project, because there's some beautiful Bulgarian dancers and musicians on the island.
Gosh.
And fabulous singers. And putting them into a room with some Manx musicians and saying, what can you create?
Wow.
And they performed that at the festival last year, and they were just...
Are there any recordings of that?
Yeah. Look for it on YouTube.
On YouTube, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, well, if you don't mind me asking, I ask this primarily when I meet people in my role as a financial planner. What's your earliest memory of money? I mean, how was money for you growing up? Any particular habits it's made you have?
Well, I think one thing that my grandmother in particular would say would be, if you can't afford it, don't get it. And that would be the idea that you would work for it if you actually wanted, and you'd save up for it. If you wouldn't overstretch yourself. So that would be one of her things that would have been set up. My father was a teacher, but he was also from a farming family, so he had to work effectively 2 jobs and help out on the farm all of the time.
Yeah.
So no matter what we do now, none of us can live up to having worked as hard as he did. And we know that. And we wouldn't have had the energy or the drive to do it either. I think...
And an inventor too. I bought one of his hoes the other day.
Very good.
They're really good, yeah. It's at Lazy Dog Tools.
That's it.
Unashamed,
just a little plug.
Little plug. Brilliant though.
Yeah. So I think we never had lots of money, but we always had enough money, and it was always having enough good food to eat and sharing that with friends and family, and having that sort of good times was a good thing. That was more of a priority than going on holiday, which I think anybody linked to a farm would say. I mean, lots of farming families just don't go on holiday because they're not allowed
so
time off.
Lockdown, what's that? This is how life is.
So it's like that. And then, through uni, just getting part-time jobs, working in cafes and shops and things like that, which was good fun and lots of times. So
that's good. It's an important aspect to bring that out, actually.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's amazing. In my role, I see lots of people sacrificing what they really want for what they want now.
Yeah.
And that's with your way that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Well, of all the things you've done throughout your life so far, what things have given you the most fulfilment from both a personal and organisational perspective?
Well, I don't know really. It's all fulfilling, which is good. I mean, there are times where you get fed up of things as well, but actually I've been really lucky because I've chosen something that I really love doing, and although I have to do lots of boring paperwork as well, there's still great creativity and variety to what I do. So when I was working for the Centre for Manx Studies, I was getting to research and I was getting to mentor other people, and I really liked that as well, especially some of the students, mature students we had, to give people a little bit of the skills that they need or the guidance they need to unlock something that then makes them be able to do something more is always great. I think performing music has probably been some of the stuff that's really given me the most fulfilment, the most joy, and that's felt the most successful. Yeah. And I've been lucky to play at festivals all around the world.
Yeah, you played at a concert on Friday night, just gone, in fact, for the Cooidjagh, the Manx gathering. Yeah. And your band Clash 4. Yes, it was.
They were really good fun.
Yeah, it looked good fun.
Yeah,
and
it's hard work, but good fun.
But in this world of COVID-19, my goodness, where else on the planet could there have been a sellout concert?
That was an amazing thing, and all thanks to the committee for putting that together so quickly.
Wasn't it amazing?
Yeah, it was.
And we're all there, whilst nobody else can attend a live music gig, at least not unless it's virtually. Wasn't it a fabulous atmosphere?
It was fabulous.
And the musicians who Isla Collister said, I'm so sorry about this, I haven't performed live for so long. And she's just brilliant.
Oh, she's an amazing musician. Yeah. And I mean, she's one of those people who's been wonderful to see growing up.
Yeah, and Mira Royal as well.
And Mira, seeing them when they were young and they were playing, whether they were playing for their school groups or for Bree, the traditional youth music movement, and seeing them progress and then go to uni and become absolutely phenomenal performers. It's just, that is really rewarding.
So for any existing or aspiring business owner or community leader, organisational leader, what would be your number one tip?
surround yourself with really good people. I think you can't be brilliant at everything yourself. You can be pretty good at a lot of things, but if you surround yourself with really good people who are great at things that are complementary to you, then that's a really brilliant thing to do. And you'll have a lot of fun as well, because you'll have people who are able to spark ideas off each other.
Okay, good one. So what do you do to relax and keep your life in balance?
Well, I walk. I just walk around the hills when I can, and I play a lot of music, and that's relaxing to me, even though a lot of it is, quite structured. But it's I sing in a Gaelic choir and I play in Vooar as a band. Mm-hmm. And in my 20s and 30s, I might have been out 4 nights a week doing different rehearsals with different groups. And it's great fun. You're either rehearsing or you're performing in pubs, in different stages, at festivals, in other places. And getting to travel with your music, I think, has been good.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks. So tell me, what do you think are the best things about living in the Isle of Man?
Well, I think it's the people. I do think the people, I'm going to say that I'm coming from a cultural background, but people make culture, and the people here are pretty special, and we quite often forget that. We know we've got wonderful scenery around us, we've got beautiful hills and coastline, but it's actually the people, when they're at their best, they can be absolutely wonderful, warm-hearted, interesting people, and quite innovative, and more innovative than we always give ourselves credit for, I think. I used to work with Fenella Bazin at the Centre for Manx Studies, and I know you've interviewed her before, and she would talk about that, about really how many ideas can come out of a small community. And also, because it's a small place, one person can make a huge difference. So if you've got something that you really want to push through, you really can make it. So Mona Douglas was one of these, I would like to call them a dynamite kind of figure. And they can really push things through at a time when they really need to, and achieve a lot. So I think it's a great place for that. I think it's a great place for you to be innovative and for you to make a difference.
Do you think it's an attractive and inclusive sort of place for people to come? I mean, you mentioned Bulgarians before, but for any persons or
I think
culture.
It is, but I think we need to always be mindful of being even more welcoming than that, because societies, the way community works, is that negotiation between people who are there and people who are coming in, whether it's from one village to another, because the Isle of Man can sometimes feel like that, yes. Or whether it's from another country to another place. And even when I was in Germany, we were looking at that. It's how you feel that you can find your way in, and it is a negotiation. So I think we have to listen as well as talk. And I think that we are a hell of a lot better than we used to be. And I think there's always more room for doing that.
So what would you say the main issues are the island faces?
Well, one thing that still horrifies me in an island where we're fairly affluent and we've got good quality of life is that there has to be a food bank. I really think that it's a wonderful thing that they exist, but why should they have to exist?
Yeah.
It shouldn't, our society shouldn't have that as an issue. We should find a new way to sort that out. So I think some sort of more social equity, some more social equality would be something that we need to fight for.
And what would you do if you were government minister then?
I'd never be a government minister. I've had to work with so many of them. They have a very, very difficult job.
They do, don't they? I wouldn't want to do that either for all the tea in China.
No.
Well, they probably net import it these days, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What have you got planned next? What's big on the horizon for you?
I think the things that are coming up, we've just got to keep building. We've got to keep looking for new audiences for Manx culture. Although we think we've been fairly successful, you only have to talk to somebody who's not connected with Manx culture, who needs a road in. And that's one of the things we've tried to do with Culture Vannin, is to make Manx culture as accessible as possible.
So how are you going to do that? Is it sort of a social media campaign of some sort, or working with
I think it's
Department for Enterprise are called these days.
It's both. We partner with a lot of government organisations, and we've partnered with businesses, places like Lloyd's in the past, to do cultural awareness programmes and
I've seen
teaching
the
language.
cards that they give to kids to get in free to the castle.
So I think it's about being innovative about how we create those other partnerships and how we actually say this is for everybody, because it's for anybody, no matter where you've come from. If you love the Isle of Man, you want to be here, then Manx culture is who you are and it's part of who you are. So let's give people an in. So we have Manx language lessons that anybody can join in.
Yeah, how do you get the word out for that though? Because if you look at, I was looking yesterday at some of the websites that have been put together by some, like Visit Isle of Man and locate.im. Beautiful websites, utterly. I mean, is there any way that you can infiltrate those?
We've worked with Locate before, coming up with, they did a wonderful campaign with different Manx words that they just thought were beautiful and put great images with.
And the music, they put the music in the background.
Exactly.
Oh, amazing.
I know, so all these things are really important. So I think that's what a lot of the work we do will create beautiful short films as well. So it could be a family going up to put rushes on the top of South Barrule as a tribute to Manannan. Now, nobody really does that, except that you can do it. You got inspired by it because this is something that used to happen. I can do it now and go on a really lovely family walk up there. Okay. And people have done that. So it's a way of reconnecting with nature, getting physically fit outside, and also something that has a cultural resonance. And so things like that are, I think, important ways that people just go, oh, that's a beautiful video, I want to watch that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so we look forward to hearing lots more about that. Yeah. So a few questions we ask every guest. Are there any books that you've read recently that you'd recommend to listeners? Even if it's philosophical or just a good read, you know? We didn't publish this ourselves, but we had a hand on it. There's a really great book at the minute called How to Teach Your Cat to Manx. And I think everybody should read it, because if you've got a cat, you can't teach them anything, but you can try. Okay.
And it's a really beautiful book from a Welsh publisher.
Fantastic. What's your favourite quote?
Well, that's one that I read first when I was in Germany, and it's only dead fish swim with the current. It sounds better in German than it does in English, but that idea that sometimes you're not, you're going to have to be fighting in the other direction.
It's pretty profound.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't always do it. It's nice to have a quote that you aspire to, I think.
There was one I came across involving fish last week. It said it was a story of an older fish is swimming along and says to two younger fish heading the opposite direction, "Hey guys, how's the water?" Continues on swimming. The two young fish go swimming back the other way, and one looks to the other and says, "What the hell is water?" Anyway,
well, there we go.
I think it's an analogy about money, but there we are. Yeah. So where can people go to learn more about you and the work you're doing through Culture Vannin and I don't know, the bands that you're involved with? Yeah. Have you got some Facebook pages or links, websites?
If you just Google Culture Vannin, you'll find us, and you'll find links to everything else we do.
For those who can't spell it, I'll put it in the show notes.
It's just culture, and then it's Vannin, like Bus Vannin, like Ellen Vannin. Okay. So it is. We deliberately chose a name that had one word in English and one word in Manx,
right?
So that it would be easy and it would show that what we're doing is nice and inclusive.
Okay. Is there anything else that we haven't brought up, any stories that you want to particularly fit in that we haven't managed to fit in anywhere? Any anecdotes that would help you? Anything you thought about over on the drive over today and didn't get to tell me about?
I think the important thing in my life is having people who would be willing to share something along the way. So whether that was somebody who would let me have a go on their wooden flute when I was a young kid and thinking, I really want to try out that sort of music and to shape.
But did that help?
It helped.
Did it really?
It did. Oh. And that's giving access to something that you think, do I want to try that or not? And I think that's something that I
remember you being really good and thinking, cool, I'll just get that tone.
Not at all. But I think it's having those opportunities, so giving people a chance to try something and that they might not always succeed at it, but actually keeping trying things until you find what you're good at and until you find what you want to do. And if you're really lucky, you can turn that into something that you can make your livelihood. and it'll always be a vocation if not.
No.
So,
Well, I mean, congratulations,
thing.
swimming against the tide, swimming against the current as you've done. It's clearly given you the chance to do what you love through a pathway that you've created to be able to do this, and to have had all those. It's down to your hard work, Breesha. So
I think the other thing is that your path might not be a straight path. Not many people's paths are straight paths.
No, that's right.
I was heading in a direction where I could have been lecturing in German into university, and I just didn't want to do that for the next 30 years or however long I would have lasted doing that. So I changed course. And I think if you allow yourself to do that and to gather lots of skills and to become multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary, that's going to serve you well in the world as it is now.
That's really important.
People are not just sort of one niche anymore. You have to be good at lots of different things.
That's crucial. What a good message.
It is.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that happened by accident in lots of ways. But I was always greedy. I didn't want to just study one subject. I'll have two. I'll do two, and then I'll do that, and then I'll just transfer that knowledge to this. And I think being brave enough to do that, mind you, I didn't earn any money for about 10 years, apart from working in cafes and shops. So that was the downside to it. But I wouldn't trade that for everything that I learned and the people I met and the music that I did over that time.
Oh, lovely. Well, Dr Breesha Maddrell, thank you so much for sharing your story. That's great and inspiring. And so thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Island Influencers from Thornton Chartered Financial Planners. To find out more and for useful links, visit thorntonfs.com/podcasts.